My fork hit the expensive china plate with a sound that echoed like a gunshot in the sudden silence of the dining room. But the noise was nothing compared to the ringing in my ears caused by the words my sister had just spoken. 7 years. It had been exactly 7 years, 3 months, and 12 days since the police knocked on my door to tell me they found my husband's car abandoned by the bridge, engine cold, with no sign of Mark anywhere. 7 years of living in the gray purgatory between being a wife and a widow. 7 years of holding onto a shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, he had amnesia, or he was hurt, or he was coming back. And for those same 7 years, I had been the rock. I had been the provider. I had been the ATM, the therapist, and the punching bag for the 3 people sitting around this table looking at me with feigned innocence. My mother with her wine glass half raised, my father pretending to be interested in his green beans, and Jenna, my younger sister, who was smirking, actually smirking, after asking me the most cruel, heartless question imaginable. She had leaned forward, her eyes glinting with malice, and asked honestly, "Sarah, do you think Mark actually went missing, or did he just take one look at where his life was going with you and decide to run for the hills? I mean, looking at you now, can you blame him?" The air in the room turned toxic instantly. It hung there like poison. They were waiting for me to cry. They were waiting for me to hang my head, apologize for being moody, and go back to quietly paying for the roast chicken they were eating, the wine they were drinking, and the roof over their heads. But something inside me, a dam that had been holding back an ocean of resentment for nearly a decade, finally cracked. My hand wasn't trembling anymore. It was stone still. I looked from Jenna's cruel smile to my parents' indifferent faces, and I realized that the only pathetic thing at this table wasn't my marital status. It was my generosity. Before I tell you what happened next, and how I absolutely scorched the earth beneath their feet, I need to ask you, was I wrong? Was I wrong for letting it go this far? Or was I wrong for finally destroying their comfortable little lives? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. To understand why that moment shattered me, you have to understand who Mark was, and who I was before the world stopped turning. Mark wasn't just my husband. He was the only person who ever made me feel like I didn't have to apologize for existing. We met in college, 2 scholarship kids trying to navigate a world of trust funds, and we built a life brick by brick. He was an architect, brilliant and kind, the kind of man who would pull over to help a turtle cross the road. We were happy. We were planning for a baby. We had just bought the big house, a sprawling historic property that needed work but had good bones, a place we wanted to fill with kids and dogs. My family, they were always difficult. My parents were terrible with money, the type who bought new cars when they couldn't pay the electric bill, and Jenna was the golden child who could do no wrong, despite never holding down a job longer than 3 months. But Mark handled them with grace. He'd say, "They're your family, Sarah. We help where we can." But then came that Tuesday in November. The call, the police station, the weeks of searching the riverbanks, the posters, the private investigators that drained our savings. Mark was just gone. No note, no turmoil, just vanished. The grief wasn't a sharp pain. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket that I had to wear every single day. And that's when my family swooped in. At first, I thought it was love. Mom and Dad moved into the guest suite to help me cope. Jenna crashed in the spare room because she was worried about me being alone in this big house. I was so broken, so desperate for connection, that I didn't see the trap snapping shut. It started slowly. Mom would say, "Oh, Sarah, I picked up some groceries, but I left my wallet at home. Can you Venmo me?" Then it was Dad. The transmission on the truck went, "Kiddo, I can't get to my part. Time job without it. Mark would have wanted you to help. Mark would have wanted." They used his name like a skeleton key to my bank account. Mark wouldn't want you to be lonely. Jenna would say while dragging me to a bar, then sticking me with the tab for her and 5 friends. Mark would want us to be comfortable, Mom would say as she ordered new furniture for the guest suite her suite. Within a year, they had fully colonized my life. I went back to work as a corporate lawyer, burying myself in 80-hour weeks because the silence of the office was better than the noise at home. I was making good money, really good money, but I never saw it. It went to the mortgage, the utilities, Jenna's student loans that she wasn't paying, my dad's investments that never paid off, and my mom's shopping addiction. I was keeping 4 adults afloat while drowning in my own sorrow. And the worst part, they didn't even like me. They resented me. They resented that I was the one with the career, the one with the checkbook. They needed to take me down a peg to feel better about taking my money. It started with little digs. "You look tired, Sarah. You're letting yourself go. Maybe if you had dressed up more, Mark wouldn't have stayed late at the office so much." That was the narrative they built. Mark didn't disappear. He left me. I was unlovable. I was boring. I was a workaholic who drove him away. They rewrote the history of my marriage to suit their cruelty. I remember one Christmas, 3 years after he vanished. I had bought everyone expensive gifts, tablets, designer bags, cash. I opened my gift from Jenna. It was a self-help book titled Getting Over Him, How to Stop Being a Victim. I looked up, tears stinging my eyes, and she just shrugged, chewing gum. "I'm just trying to help, Sarah. You're depressing to be around. It's been 3 years. He's dead or he's in Mexico with a blonde. Move on." My parents nodded in agreement. "She's right, honey," my mom said, patting my hand. "You're still young-ish. You could find someone else if you just tried harder." I swallowed the rage then. I swallowed it because I was afraid of the silence in the empty house if they left. I was paying for their company, essentially. I was paying a premium for abuse because I was terrified of being truly alone with the ghost of my husband. Fast forward to the 7th year. This is important legally. In our state, 7 years is the timeline to have a missing person declared legally dead in absentia. This means life insurance payouts. This means unfreezing assets. For months leading up to this anniversary, the energy in the house had shifted. My family was giddy. They weren't mourning Mark. They were anticipating the payday. They stopped asking for small amounts of money and started talking about our future. Dad was looking at boats. Mom was looking at condos in Florida. Jenna was talking about starting a lifestyle brand. They assumed that when the insurance money hit, a policy Mark had taken out for $2 million, I would just hand it over, or share it, or that it would become the family fund. They had spent the last few weeks practically pushing me toward the courthouse to file the paperwork. "It's time for closure," Dad had said over breakfast, trying to hide a smile. "It's time to secure our future." But here is the thing they didn't know. I hadn't filed the paperwork. I couldn't do it. Declaring him dead felt like killing him myself. I still had a private investigator on a retainer, a secret expense I kept from them. I still checked the missing persons boards. I wasn't ready to cash in on his life, and even if I was, I had started to wake up. I had started to see the receipts literally. I found credit card statements Jenna had hidden. I found out my dad wasn't working a part-time job. He was spending his days at the track. I found out my mom was telling the neighbors that I was mentally unstable and that she was the one holding the household together. I was waking up from a 7-year coma of grief, and I was starting to get angry. That brings us to the dinner. It was supposed to be a memorial dinner for Mark, marking the 7-year anniversary. I had paid for the catering. I had paid for the wine. I sat at the head of the table, the chair opposite me empty, Mark's chair. They were buzzing with energy, barely containing their excitement. They thought I had gone to the lawyer that morning to finalize the death certificate process. They thought tonight was the night I'd announce the windfall. When I stayed silent, just pushing my food around, the mood started to turn. They got impatient. Jenna, being the brat she always was, decided to poke the bear. She wanted to hurt me, maybe to make me emotional, so I'd be easier to manipulate. Or maybe just because she hated that I held the purse strings. That's when she dropped the bomb. Pathetic. She had muttered first. When I asked her what she said, she repeated it louder. Pathetic? You're pathetic for being single this long. Honestly, Sarah, do you think Mark actually went missing? Or did he just take one look at where his life was going with you and decide to run for the hills? I mean, looking at you now, can you blame him? My fork clattered down. The sound rang out. I looked at my mother. She didn't scold Jenna. She took a sip of wine and looked at me with those cold, appraising eyes. Well, Sarah, Mom said Jenna's delivery is harsh, but her point is valid. You've been moping for 7 years. It's not attractive. Mark is gone. We need to be practical now. Did you sign the papers today? That was it. That was the moment the glass shattered. Did you sign the papers? Not are you okay? Not we miss him too. Just give us the money. So that's the situation I was in. I was sitting at the head of a table in a house I paid for, eating food I paid for, surrounded by people wearing clothes I bought, listening to them tell me my missing husband ran away because I was unlovable, all while they salivated over his death benefit. I had to make a choice in that split second. I could cry, run to my room, and let them win again. Or I could burn it all down. I looked at the knife in my hand. I looked at Jenna's smug face. Before I tell you what I said next, I want you to pause, take a second, scroll down and comment what you would have done. Would you have kicked them out right there? Would you have screamed? Or would you have done what I did, something much, much colder? I didn't scream. That's the first thing you need to know. I didn't flip the table. I went unnervingly calm. I picked up my napkin, dabbed the corners of my mouth, and placed it gently on the table. I looked Jenna dead in the eye, you know. I started, my voice steady. That's an interesting theory, Jenna, that Mark ran away to escape me. Because if he did, he left behind a $2 million life insurance policy, a house worth $1.5 million, and a wife who earns 6 figures. And you think he traded that to get away from me? Jenna rolled her eyes. Money isn't everything, Sarah. Maybe he wanted someone who wasn't such a drag. Maybe, I agreed. But speaking of money, Mom asked if I signed the papers today. My father perked up. Did you, sweetie? Did you get the ball rolling? I took a sip of my water. No, I didn't. The room went deadly silent. What do you mean you didn't? Mom asked, her voice sharpening. Sarah, we discussed this. We have plans. The roof needs repairs. Jenna needs a new car for her. Business. I didn't sign the papers declaring Mark dead. I said slowly, enjoying the way their faces dropped. Because I'm not going to. I'm not claiming the insurance money. Not now. Maybe not ever. I'd rather live in uncertainty than profit off his absence. You're selfish. Jenna exploded. You're keeping that money from us. We're your family. We've sacrificed 7 years to take care of you. I laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound. Sacrificed, you've lived rent-free. You've eaten my food. You've spent my earnings. You haven't sacrificed a single thing. You've been parasites. How dare you? My father slammed his hand on the table. After everything we've done. And that brings me to the second update. I continued, ignoring his outburst. Since I didn't sign the death certificate, there is no windfall coming. No payout, which is unfortunate for you, because I did sign some other papers today. I reached under my chair and pulled out a manila envelope. I tossed it onto the center of the table. It slid across the polished wood and hit Jenna's wine glass with a clink. What is this? Mom asked, staring at it like it was a bomb. That, I said, is the closing contract for this house. They froze. What? Jenna whispered. I sold the house. I said, a smile finally touching my lips, not a happy smile, but a satisfied one. It's a seller's market, really. Got a cash offer, way over asking price. The buyers want a quick close. 30 days. You can't sell the house, Dad stammered. Where will we live? I don't know, I said, shrugging. I know where I am going. I bought a small condo in the city, closer to my firm. It's a 1 Bedroom, very chic. No guest suite. No basement for investments. Just enough room for me. You're kicking us out? Mom shrieked, standing up. Your own mother, in this economy. You have 30 days, I repeated. And since you're also concerned about my finances, I should let you know I've also canceled the family credit cards as of, let me check my watch, about 20 minutes ago. They are all declined. Jenna grabbed her phone, presumably to check her balance or try to buy something online to test me. Her face went pale. UB******. I have a trip to Cabo booked next week. I need that card. Looks like you're not going to Cabo. I said, maybe you can get a job instead. I hear Starbucks is hiring. The explosion was immediate and chaotic. Jenna threw her wine at me, missed, thankfully, ruined the wallpaper, and started screaming that I was ruining her life. Mom started crying, the fake, wailing tears she used to get her way, clutching her chest and claiming she was having a heart attack. Dad tried the authoritarian route, standing up and demanding I fix this mess immediately and show some respect. I just sat there. I watched them unravel. For 7 years, I thought these people were my support system. In one dinner, I saw them for what they really were, scavengers picking at a carcass. And I wasn't the carcass anymore. I'm leaving tonight, I said, standing up. I've already packed my essentials. The movers come for the rest of my stuff on Monday. Anything left in the house after 30 days belongs to the new owners. I suggest you start packing. I walked out of the dining room, their screams following me down the hallway. Sarah, come back here. You can't do this. Mark would be ashamed of you. My mother yelled. I stopped at the front door, hand on the knob. I turned back one last time. Mark, I called out to them. Mark would have kicked you out 6 years ago. I'm sorry it took me this long to honor his memory. I walked out into the cool night air, and for the first time in 7 years, I didn't feel heavy. I felt light. I got into my car, the one I paid for, and drove to a hotel. The aftermath was ugly, as you can imagine. The next 30 days were a barrage of text messages, voicemails, and flying monkeys. My aunt, who I haven't spoken to in a decade, called to tell me I was cruel for making my elderly parents homeless. I sent her a screenshot of my father's gambling losses and asked if she had a spare room. She blocked me. Jenna tried to sue me. I'm a lawyer, remember, for emotional distress and promissory estoppel, claiming I had promised to support her. It was laughable. I had my colleagues draft a response that essentially said, "Bring it on." And she dropped it when she realized she'd have to pay legal fees. They didn't believe me about the house until the sold sign went up, and the new owners came to measure for curtains. They had to scramble. Last I heard, Mom and Dad are living in a 1-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town, living off Social Security because they blew through their savings years ago. Jenna had to move in with a boy, friend she hates because she couldn't afford rent on her own. As for me, I'm sitting in my new condo. It's quiet here. It's peaceful. I still miss Mark every single day. That hole in my heart hasn't closed. But I realized that filling that hole with toxic people wasn't healing me. It was infecting the wound. I'm still looking for him. I still have the PI, but I'm doing it on my own terms now. I'm not the pathetic single sister anymore. I'm the woman who survived the loss of her husband and the betrayal of her family, and came out the other side stronger. Jenna's question at that dinner was meant to break me. She wanted to shame me for being alone, but in the end, she gave me the greatest gift she could have given. She pushed me off the cliff and forced me to realize I could fly. So, to answer the question I asked at the start, was I the jerk for cutting them off and selling the house out from under them? I don't think so. I think I finally gave them what they deserved, but I want to know what you think. If your family mocked your missing spouse after living off you for 7 years, would you have gone nuclear, or would you have tried to keep the peace? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story of revenge, or if you're just happy I finally grew a spine, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about people getting exactly what's coming to them. I'll see you all in the next story.